everybody. I am here with Dr. James Lavalle. He's an internationally recognized clinical pharmacist, author, board-certified clinical nutritionist, and naturopathic doctorate with more than 30 years of clinical experience. Welcome to our show, Dr. Lavalle.
Oh, it's good to be on.
How are you doing amidst everything that's going on in the world?
Well, trying to keep my social distance correct. And, my father lives with us. He's 89 years old. So
Wow.
we've been playing it pretty conservative because, obviously we have concern for him. But, I think I'm actually encouraged by the fact that I think a lot of people are now reaching out and trying to figure out how they can become healthy instead of just waiting until something like this hits them. So I'm very encouraged from that.
Yeah, that makes you make a really good point. It's about keeping our immune system strong throughout the year, eating a healthy diet. Obviously, you're a nutrition expert, making sure that we're eating the right foods and taking the right supplements all the time. And I guess to hear your opinion on that strengthens us, right? That keeps our immune systems up so that when we are faced with certain things, that we have a better way of fending it off. Would that be correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think the big thing to realize is that all of us, the decisions we make, how we've, grown up, what we're doing with our lifestyle, all impacts how we're going to face a crisis or even our own personal crisis, right? It could be any type of illness that hits us. And this concept of metabolic inflammation that's now very, I think very, very relevant, where your metabolism is more than whether you're just, skinny or fat or how many calories you burn. It really is shaping your immune system and your neurologic health and your endocrine health. And all of those things come together to create you today. And I think it's really important for people to try to reach out and think about, where is my lifestyle? What am I doing that really helps me promote my well-being and the ability of me to have a better, maybe family well-being. And then that, of course, translates into a better community well-being, So I think we need to start looking at, what can I do on a day in and day out basis? Obviously, I've written 20 books and 4 databases on the value of natural products as it relates to healthcare. And so I'm a big advocate for people, being proactive. The best defense is a good offense.
What are some of the things that you're doing on the offense, I guess would be a good way to ask it.
Yeah. I would say that I for sure am taking more vitamin A. I'm, getting in adequate vitamin D. I'm taking, vitamin C, kind of the basic things. But then I think there's some interesting things that could be beneficial. I think nicotinamide riboside is interesting. It's a dietary supplement that is quite good. And there's some interesting papers coming out of how it may help in terms of viral defense. There are some peptides out there in terms of agents that can be used, that doctors could be using, that are in integrative medicine, that help keep the immune system in balance so you don't get what everybody's talking about now is the cytokine storm, right? Basically what happens is, the virus, attaches to your cell and then it basically breaks in half. And then it triggers a bunch of inflammation inside your cell and leads to kind of a rapid acute cell death. And so anything you can do to balance your immune system is important. I'm big on probiotics. It's interesting, 25% of the drugs on the market today, any kind of prescription drug, over-the-counter drugs, basically disrupt your microbiome. And that's where your first line of defense is at. Mm-hmm. So I'm big on probiotics. People could go to probiotics.com and read about probiotics. If they don't know what a probiotic is, it's basically your beneficial flora. There have been studies that show that it reduces the incidence and duration and severity of at least flu bugs. Obviously not COVID-19. No studies are on, probiotics and COVID-19 yet. But in general, probiotics help your immune system to be more resilient. So I'm really big on those. And so I've been taking probiotics. I love a ingredient called Moducare, which was developed in South Africa for the HIV population about 30 years ago. really interesting plant sterol or a plant fat that has got great studies that show it helps keep your immune system in balance. And then there's obviously other things you could reach for: thymus extracts, mushrooms. Some of the mushrooms, like shiitake mushroom, really interesting. But I'm a big fan of, probiotics, Moducare. I mean, I even think aged garlic extract, because there's studies on aged garlic extract improving microbiome diversity as well as reducing incidence of cold and flu. So why not be on those things when they also have other benefits for your health day in and day out?
Let's go back to the basics for a minute, because people have heard the term microbiome, but may not actually know what it is. What is a microbiome?
So your microbiome is basically the flora that lives inside your intestine.
So good
And so
bacteria.
you have bacteria, and there's other things as well, but basically bacteria that are living in your intestine, and they're either doing good things for you or bad things for you, right? So if you're eating a lot of sugar, if you've been on a lot of antibiotics or corticosteroids or on nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, you're on certain drugs or having a diet that is, high in refined sugar, actually even high in carbohydrates. A real high carb diet will do the same thing, or a high saturated fat diet. Everybody's interested right now in going keto and drinking coconut oil like crazy. The reality is high fat diets disrupt your microbiome too. And so when we start to look at your diet can influence the flora. Now, why is that important? The microbiome dictates how you absorb your nutrients. It dictates how your immune response is. It helps to metabolize hormones. So and it also sends a lot of information to your brain. There's an enteric nervous system that connects the brain to the gut. And so when your microbiome isn't diverse and isn't full of the friendly flora, we start to move away from, what I call a homeostasis, or a chemistry that's good for your body. And then you start to move towards creating more inflammatory compounds, which creates the equivalent of a low-grade infection really in your body when you move away from that. And so it's really critical that people understand, hey, I need prebiotics, I need probiotics, I need to eat a healthier diet. And the other one people don't realize, exercise and really managing your stress also have a dramatic impact on your microbiome.
What exactly is a prebiotic for people who may not know what that means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, prebiotics are basically the foods that feed your beneficial flora. So if you've got probiotics in your microbiome, you have these beneficial flora, they need to eat. And so the foods such as artichoke, dark green leafy greens, apples are great for prebiotic fiber. Even oatmeal, if you don't do big servings of it and load it with brown sugar and raisins, if you can eat it, plain, or maybe pour a protein drink on it, right? Balance that carb out. It can be very beneficial for feeding your microbiome. So what you're looking for are fibers that actually feed the flora. And why that's important is that the food of that you give probiotics, then your probiotics release certain chemical compounds like short chain fatty acids that help your gut lining to stay healthy. Your gut lining is only one cell layer thick. One cell layer thick. It's not very, very thick. And so you got to keep it healthy. And so when you feed the probiotics, they're able to manufacture the nutrients that you need to keep that whole lining of your intestine intact.
Now, is there a certain amount of probiotics that we should be taking every single day? And is it safe to take it every single day?
These are great questions. It isn't as important as to how much you take. So everybody goes, oh, mine's 50 billion units. Mine's 100 billion units. Mine's a gabillion, That isn't the important piece. It's how well it seeds in your intestine. And there's literally studies that show whether a probiotic is effective for changing your immunity. So can you take a probiotic every day? Yes, you can. I give people different doses of probiotics based on what their need is. So someone that's got irritable bowel, or maybe they're dealing with colitis or something where the GI tract is really compromised, I may give them higher doses of probiotics in a short period of time while I'm correcting their diet and helping them manage their stress and giving them nutrients to correct all this. And then as a maintenance, I may give lower doses. So within the 3 to 6 billion units a day is plenty. They're called colony forming units. That's plenty if your diet is good, you're eating a diet rich in prebiotics, and you have a probiotic that actually is proven to seed in the intestine, have an appropriate doubling rate. So the culture grows and has a positive impact on your system.
The gut-brain connection, like you were saying, that goes up through that vagus nerve is so important, especially during times of extreme stress. Talk a little bit
Yes.
about the importance of that gut-brain connection.
Oh, well, I probably lecture, I don't know, 2,000 to 5,000 doctors a year on this. And it's central. And when I'm dealing with my professional athletes and sports teams, this is a key area to get people to understand. When you get under stress and your body starts to pump out more cortisol and more adrenaline, there's two things that happen that are really important. First of all, when you're under stress and you're releasing a lot of adrenaline, your blood flow gets restricted to your intestine, right? So your vessels get smaller. Your vessels go from this to this when you're under stress. And so when the blood flow reduces to your intestine, the beneficial flora die off, and that releases something called circulating endotoxin, which ends up attaching to your tissues and triggering inflammatory compounds to be released into your general circulation. Mm-hmm. So when you're under stress, you reduce that blood flow. It's just like people that run marathons, right? The blood flow goes away from their gut, and that's why they call it runner's diarrhea. People that do a lot of running end up with a gut that's disordered. The second part that's important is that when you're under a lot of stress and you're releasing cortisol, your body starts to release a compound called IL-6 or interleukin-6, and it's called a cytokine, an inflammatory compound. And when you release that, it goes to your gut lining and literally increases the release of another switch called Claudin-2. So another switch gets turned on. And what happens is normally your mucosal cells are like this, right? They're right butted up against each other. And there's something called tight junctions that keep things from going through that intestinal barrier that don't belong there yet. And now what happens when that Claudin-2 gets up, because your brain is under stress, is it does this. It separates.
Is that leaky gut?
And then you get leaky gut. That's right. And that can happen due to chronic stress, or that could happen due to a head trauma. So people that get traumatic brain injury, like they get a concussion, within 10 minutes, they get a leaky gut. And they get a leaky gut because of the massive inflammatory response that occurs when their brain gets hit. And yeah, a lot of people don't realize the gut-brain connection there's lots of science behind it. Back when I started writing about it in 1999, because I've been at this since 1985, there wasn't a lot of papers on it. So the thing I want people to understand is everybody's worried about food allergies today, right? Food allergies, food sensitivities. Oh, I got gluten issue, dairy, egg, almond, whatever it is. You've got to remember, if you're under chronic stress and you're not managing the fact that you're overcommitted, you're anxious, your heart rate's up, you're not getting a good night's sleep because your brain is in a hyper-aroused mode, your gut will be leaky no matter how much glutamine you drink, no matter how many probiotics you take. So it's the combination of understanding it, like when we started our talk, lifestyle, I'm going to manage my stress, and then taking things that are appropriate, like probiotics. Probably one of the most interesting ones that are studied, there's one called the Friendly Trio, that there's lots of studies on it for digestive health, immune health, even cholesterol lowering, which is a common thing that people don't realize probiotics do. So you want to do probiotics, you want to manage that gut-brain connection. I spend a lot of time teaching people deep breathing, even just here, do box breath. even if you just did 4 seconds in, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, hold 4 seconds, it resets. You mentioned it earlier. I was really glad you did. It resets the vagal tone. The vagus nerve gets reset. Now the diaphragm drops. I fully oxygenate my tissues. I don't make as much lactic acid. And now my nervous system can reset. And I'm more in balance between my sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, and my parasympathetic nervous system, which is no, balance it out. It's not a white tiger. It's not a white tiger that's attacking you. So that's gut immune brain so important.
There's a lot of talk now about heart rate variability and resetting that whole parasympathetic to sympathetic. So I want to stay on that for a minute. So by doing that deep breathing, is it something that you do several times a day to reset, or when you're feeling stressed and anxious? Because I know if we just meditate or just do the deep breathing in the morning, but then you're stressed all day long, I'm not sure what kind of benefit that has. So I think giving people practical advice on how they can manage that would be important.
Yeah, great question. I think it's best because, look, you only have to do it a couple minutes at a time. You know, and what I do with people is I have them do it 2 or 3 times a day. And if they feel additional stress, like they're feeling themselves get ramped up, you know, and they're feeling themselves get anxious, perfect time to stop, do your deep breathing so that you can reset that nervous system. And, you know, a lot of times people go, even though today, like a lot of people have time to learn meditation, people have 30 minutes now, but, you know, in normal life, it would be hard to get people to stop for 30 minutes and do breath work. There's apps that you can do. I mean, you know how important breathing is. I mean, let's face it. See that watch? This watch is even telling me I need to breathe. Right? But I think it's sad that we have to have a watch remind us to breathe deep.
Right.
And I mean, I just, you know, came up, you know, doing 15 years of Qigong and Tai Chi, and this was in the 70s and 80s. And, you know, so I was aware that breathing is important. And I think people don't understand heart rate variability yet. I think it's just important to understand that the more stressed out you get, the less your brain kind of sends the right signals to your heart and to your neurovascular network to allow the flexibility of your heart under stress versus under rest to keep it flexible and pliable. All the blood vessels and tissues, along with the rhythm of your heart, are dependent on this brain heart signaling that goes on. And so really important. If you got a resting heart rate above 62, you should start practicing breathing, you know, 2-3 times a day. That's my, you know, kind of general rule of thumb. For every 4 points above 62, you confer about a 7 to 10% increased cardiometabolic risk into your life.
Wow. Wow. Let's go back. I want to go back to leaky gut, because for people who are listening and hearing what you said, like, for example, my mom had a concussion 3 or 4 years ago, and that was something I'd never heard about, that they can actually, within that certain amount of time, get a leaky gut. What could they do? You know, what are some protocols that they can put into place to say, okay, well, I have this information now what?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So once your gut gets leaky, or the technical term that's in the medical literature is gut permeability changes, right? So when your gut gets leaky, you start to be more reactive to foods because you're not breaking your foods down all the way to amino acids. You're allowing proteins to get through that gap I told you about. So those proteins fall through the gap. And then antigen presenting cells, I'm going to present this allergen to the immune system. They take that protein and now it reacts. So the first thing is become aware of what foods you're eating may be bothering you. Now, in general, in our clinic, I take out gluten, I take out dairy, I take out corn, I take out soy. I mean, and then if somebody already has an autoimmune disorder, when they come to us, we'll test them for food sensitivities and allergies via blood, and we'll take those foods out as well. So the first thing is to take out high allergen foods. So if you just do gluten, dairy, corn, soy, egg, those are some of the biggest. The next piece is well, what do I take? So one, I use aged garlic a lot. So, there's only one aged garlic. It's called Kyolic. I use that because one, it helps reset the nervous system. They have studies that show that it resets the HPA axis in the central nervous system. Two, it has antifungal properties, which when your gut gets leaky, you tend to grow candida. Nothing new there. I've been working on candida since '85. But candida is basically an unfriendly bug that starts to grow. It's a yeast, and then you'll feel foggy headed after you eat. You'll feel bloated. You'll feel gassy. Sometimes you get rashes and eczema, and maybe even your joints will ache when you have food reactions. So I love aged garlic. I love another herb called cat's claw, with a great herb for getting inflammation out of the gut. And then obviously probiotics. I talked about the friendly trio. That's Chiodophilus is the brand. It's got human studies on it, and it has studies for potency to the date of expiration, and it is heat stable as well. So I'll recommend that. And then it's about rebuilding that gut lining. So when you change your diet, I'm going to want more vegetables, lots of vegetables, because I get those prebiotics in. And then I'll vary the amount of fat and protein based on a couple of things. If people have an ApoE gene SNP called 3444, they can't eat saturated fat. It's going to plaque their arteries. So they've got to eat. I only allow them 25 grams of saturated fat or less a day. Otherwise, if you don't have that issue, using coconut oil and those kind of things aren't a problem.
Right.
Avocado, right? Olive oil, healthy fats, and proteins. And those will switch depending on what your level of activity is. But in general, I'll get people on a fairly low carb diet starting out just to get rid of the unfriendly bugs. And then you can use other agents to rebuild that gut lining. So glutamine is an amino acid that your mucosal cells need in order to stay fluffed up and the tallest they can be. So your mucosal cells, the taller they are, the more fluffed up they are, the better they make that seal, right? When they get shriveled up and they don't have nutrients, they get smaller, and then that gap gets bigger. And so we want to do that. And so if you could start with those key things and manage your stress. I know it's hard for people today, but I've been being 60 years old, I've been through a fair amount in my lifetime. And it's so important for people to understand that since the beginning of time, the most valuable herbs that were given in every medicinal culture were herbs that affected people's stress response. They were called adaptogens. And so adaptogens like rhodiola, holy basil, cordyceps, Siberian ginseng, the whole family of adaptogens. A lot of people think they're taking those to help their adrenal glands. Well, where they work is at the brain. So adaptogens actually work to rewire your brain so you don't push out so much stress response. Just remember, as we talked earlier, when you push out stress response, your gut gets leaky. So you got to work on the stress response, take some probiotics, take something to kill off the bad bugs, take something to rejuvenate that leaky gut so that the mucosal cells get nice and fluffy and built back up again, and then you're on your way.
Now, is there somewhere on your website that people can go and read this? Because, I mean, I'm writing this down. So, Kyolic, aged garlic, cat's claw, probiotics, the Chiodophilus, adaptogens, which I'm a huge fan of, and L-glutamine.
Right.
Like, are there, I think, and at least myself, when I hear this information, I'm like, okay, I'm, happy to do it, but how much should I take? Is there a protocol? So is there somewhere people can go to learn more, if they have any questions, or to know exactly what the dosage should be?
Sure. I mean, they can go, first of all, on dosing for probiotics, probiotics.com. I'm a writer for that. I answer questions as a scientific advisor. And then jimlaval.com. I've got all my books, my ebooks. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff up there. There's free information, how to count your carbs. I mean, there's a ton of stuff.
Good.
So people can go to jimlaval.com and they can get that. And obviously they could go to our corporate site where, we're teaching doctors about how to do metabolic evaluations, where we're really looking at these kind of issues instead of just, talking about what the next drug to use is how do you get to the core metabolic dysfunction in an individual, right? Because for most people, even if you go, oh, I'm going to take milk thistle for my liver. Well, what if the problem with your liver is because of your diet or it's because of your stress, right? You want to get to the source of the issue. That's metaboliccode.com. And so that's kind of where people can get, I'd say, a pretty rich amount of information between those.
That's good. Thank you. Is there anything that you feel that you'd like to talk about that we didn't cover today that before we end our interview?
Well, no, I just think I'm going to just reiterate what I said at the start of this discussion. It's time that people understand, we have 80% of the population's overweight. 50% of our adult population is either pre-diabetic or diabetic in the United States. And Canada, by the way, is mimicking those numbers. It's time that people start to take responsibility for their health. And I know we hear it all the time, but all I can tell you is that if we don't start taking responsibility for our health, we're just going to continue to have these collisions with crises. And, my heart goes out to everyone that's suffering or has got a family member that's impacted by this. By no means do I not have a lot of compassion for folks, but at the same time, I always say, for all the Lululemon pants getting sold in America, we don't have a lot of people out there. There's more people out there walking now than ever. And it's because, they don't know what else to do. So let's hope they hold on to that and not worry about how much wine they can drink during their quarantine or, just sitting. Get out there, start changing your lifestyle now.
Well said. Thank you. No, I agree. It's all encompassing, right? It's the food we're eating. It's the mindset. Thank you for reminding me to do my deep breathing today, because I will do that. I forgot to do it today because I had interviews and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that as soon as we get off our interview. And I appreciate you taking the time. And I love I'm just looking at your background, just looking at the palm trees behind you is so relaxing for me, because I live in Canada where it's a little bit colder here. We don't have palm trees, but it's beautiful to see. So that alone can help to relax your nature, right? As much as you're saying. So
yeah, but walks. Absolutely. But you have wonderful poutine up there.
In Quebec. I'm in Ontario, but yeah, in Quebec.
Oh, you're in Ontario now. Okay, yeah.
I'm in Ontario.
Yeah, very good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So again, probiotics.com. I think that's a great resource, so check it out. And thank you, everybody, for watching. If you got value out of today's interview, please share this interview with your family and your friends, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already at Naturally Savvy. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Lavalle. Stay well and stay healthy.
Thank you.